Of us are turning to anything to keep warm, but it's also a busy period for emergency services who will be responding to multiple shack fires. Let's take a look at this and then we'll be speaking to children of fire and emergency services.
The densely populated Joe Slovo informal settlement, prone to shack fires. A spider web of illegal connections, another trigger. All these factors present a challenge for emergency services. Fires disfigure, devastate and ruin lives. 12-year-old Polite Gumede bears the scars of his ordeal. Gumede and his older sibling were trapped in a shack after a candle toppled over.
I woke up, I saw that I was burning. I tried to run away and then I fell. But my brother was still asleep, so he was more injured than me. Yeah, and then when my mother came back, she saw fire and then she ran. She tried to enter, but she couldn't, so she went to the tap to wet herself, and then she entered in the house.
Fileng Maamotse shared a similar tragedy.
My mom left me alone in the house when I was a young baby. So she went to a tavern and then there was no one home. I was home alone, and then she left the candle on and the candle fell on my bed as a baby.
These survivors on a drive to create awareness and give advice.
When you're using a candle, you must always make sure that there is an elder in the house, so if there's anything wrong, she or he can help.
Please do not leave candles or paraffin stoves on at night when you know, because there could be fires everywhere.
Also an appeal for a helping hand.
We made an appeal for a very basic thing of buckets, because at least if people have a bucket of water in the home or a bucket of sand for paraffin fires, then they can throw it and they can keep the fire small for it not to spread. So Macro Help today, we put out an appeal for 1,000 buckets. We've only got like 100 so far.
Hopefully this campaign will reach out to many and save lives. Chilean Play, SABC News, Johannesburg.
So there you heard about some cases where there were survivors. Sometimes there are multiple deaths. Just yesterday we were reporting that 6 family members, including 4 children, died in a fire at Hexpark in Worcester in the Boland area. Let's discuss now. We're joined by Bronwen Jones of Children of Fire. You saw her in that insert, and Robert Mulaudzi, the spokesperson of the City of Johannesburg's Emergency Management Services. Welcome to you both.
Thank you very much.
Bronwen, let me start with you. So you know those young people in that insert. Is it heartbreaking if you think a lot of this could have been avoided?
It's terrible because their injuries are with them for a lifetime. And often they have injuries that you can't see, they're under their clothes, but they still affect their self-esteem and their physical well-being. So, yeah, if people would just not leave their children alone, chances are that they might never be burned.
Is that the majority of cases you've been involved with, where children are left alone? We heard the mother went to a tavern, etc.
That's about two-thirds of the cases are negligence and 1/3 are intentional, where people burn children.
Okay, so if there are adults around, usually they know what to do. Is it fair enough to say that?
Well, if you talk to the hospitals this evening, as we did, the number of adults in hospital with severe burns, even also from hot water, which we always thought of as mostly for children, the numbers are high. There's just this evening, there's 21 kids, one as young as 8 months old in Leratong, 8 adults. Tembisa, there are 40 children badly burned and 18 adults, and that would be replicated in hospitals across South Africa.
What are you seeing on the ground and hearing about, Robert?
Yeah, we during this time of the season, winter season, we normally respond to, a number of fire incidents, especially in our informal settlements. Our residents in these areas, they're still using, paraffin stoves, they're using candles. Some of them, they're using beer bottles as candle holders. Some, they're still using your old traditional candle holder.
Yeah.
which might be dangerous. If the candle gets heated, it might fall and you might have a fire around the house. So those are some of the issues. And also the paraffin stoves. Most of them, they tend to go for the cheaper ones, which you normally find on the streets.
Yeah.
Most of these stoves are not regulated by the National Regulator of Compulsory Specification. So it's not tested in terms of its durability and whether it can be able to use it there. So most of them, they explode while in use. So our residents tend to, because most of them are from, poor areas, they tend to go for these ones. So those are, I will say, is most of the incidents which, and of course the other incidents which respond to other incidents where you find out that maybe, as you said earlier on, like kids are left alone.
Yeah.
And then they are tempted to prepare maybe food for themselves. I mean, we've had a number of incidents where we are, like the latest one we did in Princess Informal Settlement. I think there were two brothers, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. So they were actually looking after each other while the parents were out on a night out.
4 and 6. And what happened?
Yeah, so what happened is that the older one was tempted to like prepare some food around, when they were left, alone at home. So unfortunately, when they came back, they found us there. So of course, you see us, you must know that something is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by the time, unfortunately, they have already, lost their lives because they were there. They actually inhaled the smoke from the, that fire incident. Yeah. So I will say those are some, and then also in your formal residential areas, because we tend to focus mostly on our informal settlements, but you still find situations where our communities tend, like maybe if it's winter, they will leave a heater to try and warm a room, maybe for 5 minutes or 10 minutes to say, no, I'm just leaving it for now.
Yeah.
I'll come and check on it. And then that 5 minutes of which you leave that heater, the whole house might be on fire. So hence we try and educate our communities when we get a chance through our public education to make sure that they are aware of the dangers.
Yeah.
Me and her, we know each other very well.
Yeah, well, let's try and educate now. I mean, like you say, it's across class structures. People can leave things on and be just forget. So Bronwen, you say something like a bucket can make a huge difference. Just tell us about your drive to get buckets first, and then we'll look at some of the other things.
The issue with buckets, particularly at Slovo Squatter Camp, which is the closest one to us, is there is so much illegal electricity there that various members of the fire brigade said they won't go anymore. They said they can't risk the firefighters' lives to shoot a hose on live cables.
Yeah.
So at least if the people can learn to throw the water at the base of the fire, and they all have a bucket at home, maybe they can keep the fire small so it doesn't spread to other shacks. If people respond quickly. We have put firefighting water tanks in squatter camps before. They've been stolen, they've got bullet holes in them. It's been a long saga to try and make those work. So at least the bucket drive, we're hoping to help Slovo, because we can't beat the criminals, though the city of Johannesburg and Gauteng province probably could. We've got plenty of ideas how they could discourage people from stealing electricity.
Well, tell me about that, because, and let's be honest, it must be tempting. If you are poor, you want electricity, you want to be warm, you want a TV or something like that. It must be tempting to go for it.
I'm quite sure if I lived in a shack, I would also want electricity, illegal or not. What they could do, certainly next to Slovo Squatter Camp, most of the electricity is stolen from the street lights, and City Power is testing some prototypes for solar street lights. So if you put in solar lights and the panels were high enough so people would struggle to steal them, then no one can tap the electricity from those. So that would be a solution. The other solution is to increase the pace of electrification of shacks. They've been, certainly since I've been working in this field, 15, 20 years ago, they put in distribution boards in shacks. So they can do that. And if you look at the overall cost, if someone's shack burns down, the loss of their possessions, their documents, and so on, is probably about 15,000 Rand per shack. You multiply that by a community of, say, 8,000 shacks, and that starts to be an economic effect that it makes more sense to prevent those fires.
Yeah.
Let alone,
of course, and the loss of life, yeah.
And the cost of rebuilding burned children.
Yeah.
And we've got quite a few children who've cost R1 million each to fix.
Yeah.
So let's save the money.
How are you funded?
Public donation. We get nothing from government. Never have.
Robert, so you were talking about this temptation to buy the cheap paraffin units. Illegal connections, do you see that often?
Yeah, it's also a problem in most of our areas. I mean, you'll recall that in throughout the city, we've got about 189, about 190 informal settlements. They differ. Some they're electrified, some they're not. So most of our residents, they will be tempted to use these paraffin stoves. And then most of these paraffin stoves we're talking about, they don't have safety features on them. So if, for instance, it falls while you're busy cooking, that paraffin will be all over the place, and then there'll be a fire incident.
And do you agree with Bronwen that much more can be done about the illegal power connections, electricity?
Yes, because not only it's not only dangerous to the people who are there, it's also dangerous to us. Because in most, as she rightly said earlier on, when we respond to this emergency,
and is that true? Firefighters don't even want to go because you're dealing with live cables.
Yeah, not even on a fire incident, even if you're responding to a medical incident, because in most of the time we go there, at night. So it means that whatever services will be rendered in that area, you're putting everybody in danger. And we still respond to incidences where young kids are electrocuted because of these cables which are laying around, not only fire incidents.
What happens in that instance? Are the firefighters allowed to say we won't go in? Surely they're obliged to try, at least. I don't know how it works.
No, it's a danger. It's actually put them, remember, there's this golden rule, you can't be, dead firefighters can't save lives. You every time you make sure that when you go into the building, you are safe. Wherever you're going, you are safe.
Yeah.
Because you can't save someone if you yourself you're not safe. So safety is very important. So it even though we're gonna go, it might take us forever to come to ensure a rescue. What's gonna happen? We'll have to ask for city power to come and disconnect or whatever. By the time they disconnect those cables and things, what's happening? I mean, how many minutes does it take for the whole shack to burn? So you understand. So it will. The process will be
so incredibly sad.
It's going to take forever for us to be able to respond to that incident.
All right, Bronwen, tell us about the other things you have here that can be helpful.
Okay. Lots of children are given grown-up jobs to do and asked to cook food. If you get, if you prepare the food before you go out, like you've heated up the rice, and it's in boiling water, you can then turn the stove off and you can put it in a foil-lined bag. It's called a hot bag. You put it in there, and then you do it up, and then you leave it there, and you say to the kids, it'll be cooked in an hour. It carries on cooking without any open flame, without any electricity.
And how much does something like that cost?
We were sent these quite a while ago, but they're really quite cheap. People could make them themselves because it's just foil between the cloth. So you can probably get one for about 60 rand.
Okay. Then you've got a candle, which, I mean, they seem so innocuous, but we're hearing from both of you how incredibly dangerous they can be. So the candle versus the torchlight.
For everyone, for power cuts, for load shedding. Yes, when your child plays with it, they are going to use up all the batteries. But what's the cost of a battery compared to the cost of a funeral?
Yeah.
So
avoid candles
avoid
all
candles,
if you can.
Even for romance. Don't stick them by the side of your bath either, because your baths are plastic these days.
Yeah.
And then the candle will melt through the bath and you'll have a different sort of fire.
But you have some candles here that look interesting. Solar-powered candles.
These ones are solar-powered. I'm not sure if it charged up enough today to demonstrate. We'll just see. Because people are kind of hooked on something that should look like a candle. Yeah, that one is glowing.
Okay.
So lots of different versions of solar lights, and these ones you can hang them up inside your shack or wherever.
Yeah.
So you can still have something that looks like a candle.
Quite cute. And then very quickly, the kettle and the water bottle.
Yeah. Hot water bottles, most things, people will say hot water bottles are dangerous. We prefer these to the electric ones, not least when there's a power cut. We can still use a gas stove and heat up water. As long as you use them wisely and squeeze out the extra air and do them up properly. Don't let children fill them.
Yeah.
But it keeps you warm. Keeps you warm, keeps you safe. Then you don't leave something else turned on all night that's either using paraffin or electricity.
Okay.
As to the kettle, that is really the most common cause of injury. A lot of them now you can get them where the cable is not attached. Those ones are better because otherwise you get a toddler, they pull them down. They pull cooking pots down, they pull these down. And the most common injury I think we deal with in any kids, they're burned on the face and the upper body and the arm that pulled up to pull the kettle down because they wanted to help mama or help their father or whatever making tea. And just keep kids away from hot water of any kind. It's it's the biggest cause of burns.
These are simple interventions to save lives. Robert, let me give you the last word. I mean, it must be a very sad season because of what we're talking about. If there was one intervention, one thing you could tell people, what would it be?
I would say I would encourage adults out there to make sure that whatever heating devices they use, they must make sure that they don't leave them unattended. They don't leave young kids with these heating devices unattended because we know that they are dangerous. They might, lose their lives. And if they do using these devices, like for instance, they're using Imbaula. In most of our informal settlement, they're using Imbaula. So what they will do is they will use it to take it inside when they go sleep. And most of them, they don't wake up in the morning because of they inhale those toxic fumes. So we advise them as soon as that room is heated, then they'll have to take it out and then they go to sleep because that area where they are is going to be, it must be ventilated. Then as soon as they go to sleep, they need to take it out.
And maybe something like a hot water bottle will help. Very quickly,
Exactly.
What can people do if they want to donate buckets or get involved, Bronwen?
If they'd please go to our website at the bottom of the homepage, they'll get all our contact details. It's www.firechildren.org.
All right, www.firechildren.org. Thank you both this evening. That was Bronwen Jones from Children of Fire and Robert Mulaudzi, the spokesperson of the City of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services.